Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us as we kind of take a deep dive into this wonderful new series that we're starting here at CEO Effectiveness called Coffee with a CEO. So we are joined this morning by none other than Miss Lisa Demmi. Lisa, good morning.
Good morning, Gino. How are you?
I am well. How is life treating you? I know you have got a ton of stuff going on. You're a social media badass. You're an author. You're a motivational speaker, an incredible leader in our community. You're moving and shaking.
I think you have to move and shake these days, or it'll pass you by with all the changes that are happening every day. You got to, yeah. I'm doing great. I have no place to complain. Certainly, 2020 has been a challenge for all of us, but we are just we are kind of rolling with the punches and doing whatever we have to do to make sure that we're staying on top of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It is what a year 2020 has been, right? I mean, it has just been one thing after another, and I think it's so amazing. And for you folks who are out there, it's really important. We want you to get a good grasp on who it is that you're listening to today. I mean, Lisa Demmi, you name it, she's done it, right? So whether it's from a marketing perspective, strategic planning, leadership, speaking, so she is an invaluable resource for us to share some time this morning together and kind of pick her brain and learn a little bit more, Lisa, about everything that you've accomplished and what you've done and recommendations that you have for people who are either just getting in the groove or have been in the groove for a while and are starting to plateau. Right,
Yeah.
Which happens to everybody, right?
All
That's
of us.
one of the things that we here at CEO Effectiveness really try and target to take people to the next level. So Lisa, what's your story? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, it all started in Gainesville, Florida. No, just kidding. You really hit the nail on the head, Gino. I've done my business background has been anything from painting liquor signs to selling fishing equipment to being a touring musician to a national speaker to running an inspection and engineering company to now also being, in addition to being a professional speaker, coach, and trainer, I also am partial owner of a construction company. So I feel like I have a little bit of everything, which is good because I feel like it gives me a better perspective than maybe someone who's had limited work experience.
Absolutely. It's interesting, right? Back in the day, right, but 1930s, 1940s, the idea of doing one thing and one thing only for the entirety of your lifespan, that was kind of expected, right? Now, what are we learning? We're kind of seeing that there's a shift in that trend.
For
and
sure.
It's really important to have multiple areas and multiple avenues that kind of define you professionally, because the rate at which business is conducted, the operational tempo is so fast and things change so much that you have to be on top of things, right? You have to be able, to your point, you got to move and shake. If you want any movement these days, you got to get out there. So, in your experience, Lisa, if you were talking to somebody who's just starting out, right? They're a small business owner, they're kind of getting their ducks in a row. What would be one thing that you would recommend to them that has proven itself to you time and time again?
One thing.
I know it's tough.
Wow. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think people think that they have to come out of the gate perfect. And guess what? I've been doing this for, 40 years, 30 years, and I'm still not perfect. But what I have learned is that mistakes aren't necessarily bad. Mistakes are a part of the learning process. And I think you could either play it really, really safe and never make a mistake, but you will also not develop and grow, or you can go out there and say, I'm not going to throw all risk to the wind, but I'm going to make educated decisions and then learn from those mistakes. One of my colleagues who's a speaker, Delatoro McNeil, he's amazing. And his thing is win or learn. You never lose. You're either winning or you're learning. And that's something that I've carried with me through many, many years of different businesses and everything.
Yeah. That's profoundly so, because when you think about this idea of perfection, especially those of us who are out there that are content experts, and there's a right way to do things. In reality, when we're talking about business, to your point, there's a lot of ways to slice that pie, right? And it's always the question of what is good enough? And that's hard when you are someone who is a perfectionist and you want it done your way. You know, it's very hard to be able to say, well, wait a minute, the market is kind of giving me feedback and it's saying, no, this is acceptable. It doesn't have to be, right, that complete perfection that you want. You can consistently work towards it. But a lot of times it's difficult. It's difficult to be okay with getting to that point.
And particularly even now with, you know, with COVID being such a impactful condition in your everyday business and personal life, I think people are like, well, I don't know how to market with COVID. I don't know how to interact with COVID. I don't know what kind of a person I should be with COVID. And I've always subscribed to the point of view as being true to yourself and allowing people to know who you are, mistakes, scars, good, bad, ugly, all of it. Because I think, you know, especially now, people are more, you know, consumers are more sophisticated now. And I think that people are more interested in who you are as much as what your service is, and even more so than what you're charging, because they want to know, are you a community involved person? Do you give back? Are you someone that they can relate to? Are you someone who has integrity? And I think, you know, people, particularly digitally, people, when they're doing digital marketing, I think people get behind this screen and they forget there's other people on the other side of that screen. And we get that, you know, I like to call it digital courage. And I think it allows people to maybe be a little bit more bold than they probably would in person. And, you know, something I learned in college was the Wall Street Journal test. Don't say anything to somebody or share anything with somebody that you wouldn't be okay with being on the cover of the Wall Street Journal. And so when I stop and think, you know, I'm Italian and Cuban, so that's really hard for me. But when I stop and think that, you know, there have been times when I've walked back what I was going to say in regard to, you know, a comment that someone may have said on social media, particularly social media, because we all think what we have to say is right and important, and, you know, it's our way or the highway. And I think people forget that online. And with COVID, it's so polarizing, and, you know, the whole climate. I think people are like, well, if you don't believe what I believe, then you're wrong. And that's just not the case. We just don't know, you know?
It's such a great point. And I want to shift gears and talk about something that you just said, social media in general, right? Mm-hmm. What have you noticed, especially, I mean, you are an expert when it comes to navigating social media and how to really optimize its use and effect. What have you seen has been the biggest change that COVID has had on how social media is managed? And from a traffic perspective, a content perspective, what sorts of shifts have you seen?
Well, a couple things. You know, some people are, what I see is some people are either backed off totally and they're like, I don't even know what to say. I'm paralyzed. I'm not saying anything on social media. And other people are, you know, all of a sudden we have, I think there's 1 billion plus active users on Facebook. Now we have 1 billion experts on COVID on social media. And I think the shift that I've seen is that everyone has an opinion. People are not willing to listen to the other side. And, you know, outside of a handful of us, none of us are experts. So I feel like there's a lot of misinformation. I heard something on NPR yesterday that said that misinformation is 10 times more likely to be believed if it's shared on social media. Because a lot of times what happens is you see the headline, a lot of times people don't even bother to read the article, but they see the headline and the headline sticks with them, and they share the headline because they're like, yeah, I feel that way too, when they didn't even bother to do any fact checking. So I feel like there's a lot more misinformation shared via social media. And I actually have a differing opinion than the government, because they're saying, well, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all you guys should be policing your platforms a lot more. I just don't know how you can police 1 billion users on a daily basis. I just don't.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know where to begin with something like that. So it's interesting. I mean, you know, the power of the social media tool. It's one thing. I remember back in the day, I'm going to age myself a little bit, like MySpace was a big thing, right? So all you young folks watching, if you don't know what MySpace is, kind of like Facebook, but a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's a lot of hesitation. A lot of people weren't sure if they were going to join or not. Facebook, now it's kind of an expectation. Like, if you don't have it, like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you on Facebook, right? I mean, it's incredible the sociocultural trends and how things change. But it is a platform that is incredibly powerful, incredibly influential. And I really think, especially when we start diving into freedom of speech and kind of what's happening, you know, from the political side, of course, but also from the business side, the things that you're seeing. I know on our end at CEO Effectiveness, we have had so many folks who have been pushing webinars and online workshops, which are wonderful resources. But then again, at the same time, it can be a bit much, right? Especially when we thirst for that in-person, human-to-human interaction. And I think we're starting to kind of see that. I think people are getting a little antsy. They want to be back face-to-face. They want to shake someone's hand. They want to enjoy a cup of coffee with them. So it'll be very interesting to see how kind of all this plays out as things progress. So, Lisa, let me ask you, if you had one piece of leadership advice, right, just one, what would that piece of leadership advice be?
You're killing me, Gino. One piece of leadership advice. I'll tell you what has always served me is I have always narrowed the gap between being the leader and being the team member, because I feel like I won't ask you to do anything that I haven't already done before, or that I already won't get in the trenches with you and do. I feel like my type of leadership is more of a, I won't say servant leadership, because I don't think it's 100% that, but I'm more of the teammate. And actually, let me back up. I'm going to tell you something. I think a leader has to be all kinds of different things. I teach a course in leadership, and you know, we talk about you have to be the Oprah Winfrey, and you have to be the Clint Eastwood, and you have to be the Mother Teresa, and you have to be the Obama, and you have to be all of those people, because I don't want Oprah Winfrey. Say I'm on a sinking ship. I don't want Oprah Winfrey asking for everyone's buy-in. Well, what do you think we should do? I want, like, you know, General Patton saying, get in the lifeboats and get off the boat, you know, get off the ship. I don't want to, I think you have to be different kinds of leaders for different kinds of situations. But again, my overarching is that I'm more of a collaborative leader. I'm more of a, you know, like, I don't have to get the credit. I think it does wonders for your team to get credit. It does wonders for your team to be able to input. You know, certainly I'm a type A. I like things done my way. I want, you know, I want to have my voice be known. I love being on stage, but I also see the value, you know, maybe my way might be 1 or 2% better than the other person's way. But if the other person gets a chance to contribute and communicate and feel like they're being heard, I think in the long run, that's better for the organization. And that's kind of, I'm looking at the long game, not necessarily the short game.
You know, that's profound, right, Lisa? Because here at CEO Effectiveness, one of the things that we always push for folks is, when you take a look at what leadership is, it's your ability to influence others to achieve an objective. The influence part, it takes time, right? You got to get to know who you're influencing.
For sure.
You have to understand the nuances, the things that make them tick and talk. It's really important, and I think you're exactly right. A leader has to wear many different hats. You have to be comfortable, many different types of skin, right? As far as who it is that you're talking to, why you're talking to them, what are you saying, how are you saying it, what's your body language say, all that stuff. When it's being internalized and interpreted by a team member, it means something, right? And I think so many of us get caught up because we're in the hustle, we're in the grind, and we're just, this has to be done. Go do this, go do that. And if you have that kind of rapport built up with your teams, like, oh no, I know right now Lisa's just, she's in it, she's getting after it, right? But that's not typically her state. But if your team members don't know you that well, right, then you start dealing with some disjunctures, right? Then some questioning, then some doubts, and it makes it difficult. One of the things that our founder, Dr. Anton, always says is, conversation should be at the level of dialogue with every single one of your team members. If you really want to achieve influence, conversation should be at the level of dialogue. So being able to have dialogue means that there are no barriers, right? There's no feeling uncomfortable. Everybody's welcome, right? And it's hard to achieve. So I think that's a really profound point that you bring up, Lisa. So, well, we're about at our mark. So Lisa, any parting words you want to leave with folks who are tuning in, other CEOs, new business owners, anything you'd like to share with them?
You know, if you have a dream, if you have something that you're really passionate about, I think a lot of people will try and talk you out of your dream and try and talk you out of your passion. And here's the thing, one, it's your life, not theirs. And two, it's either coming from a place of concern and fear for you. They don't want to see you get hurt, or it's coming from a place of, well, I don't want you to do better than I do. So I don't want you to get ahead of me. I think you just have to stand strong, make good decisions, use risk appropriately, and just keep forging forward. And, like we said, win or learn. And every single time you learn, don't feel like, oh man, I failed. It's not a failure. It's just one less way to do whatever it is you want to do. So that's what I would say.
Love that. That is really great, Lisa. So Lisa, for the folks who want to get a hold of you, right, whether it's for your social media expertise, your leadership expertise, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Social media. You can reach me.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm on every platform pretty much. You can just look up Lisa Demmi, and you should find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, but that's not business. It'll just be fun and interesting to watch. Then you'll have a whole different picture about me. But yeah, that, or you can reach me at lisademmi.com. I'm unfortunately, I always have this thing with me. So I'm available most of the time. So yeah.
Outstanding. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for your time, for your expertise. We greatly appreciate it, and the very profound insight that you offered everyone and myself today. So thank you so much. And for everyone tuning in, thank you all. Feel free to visit us at ceoeffectiveness.com. We do work very closely with Lisa. We think the world of her, and she does a fantastic job in her expertise. So Lisa, again, thank you. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe and stay healthy, okay?
You too, Gino. Thanks for having me.